The first time my mother called me embarrassing, she didn't say it to my face. She said it to my aunt, loud enough for the whole kitchen to hear, while I stood at the sink washing dishes after a 12-hour shift at the factory. "I just don't understand," she sighed, not even lowering her voice. "After everything we gave her, this is the life she chose. Assembly lines, steel-toe boots, grease under her nails. It's embarrassing." I remember the plate slipping slightly in my hands, not shattering, just enough to clink against the sink and remind me I was still standing there, still breathing, still invisible. No one corrected her. My aunt nodded sympathetically. My cousin pretended not to hear. My siblings were upstairs, probably scrolling on their phones, living the versions of life my mother loved to brag about. I didn't say anything either. I never did. I had learned early that silence was safer. Silence didn't start arguments. Silence didn't get you labeled difficult. Silence didn't give her another excuse to sigh dramatically and say, "See, this is what I mean." So I dried the plate, stacked it neatly, and went back to my room. That was my role in the family. Quiet, useful, easily overlooked. And for a long time, I accepted it. I wasn't supposed to end up in a factory, at least not according to my mother's plans. She liked to tell people how much potential I had, how I'd been so bright as a child, how I could have done something impressive if I'd applied myself properly. What she never mentioned was the reality behind those stories. That while my siblings had tutors, extracurriculars, and college prep courses, I had a part-time job at 16 to help pay bills. That when tuition money ran short, my dreams were the first to be quietly removed from the table. That when someone had to stay home and help, it was always me. By the time I graduated high school, I was tired of waiting for permission to live, tired of feeling like a backup plan in my own family. The factory job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. It paid more than anything else available to me. It came with health insurance, over time, and something I hadn't felt in a long time: control. I didn't tell myself it was forever. I told myself it was a start. My mother heard something else entirely. She heard failure. She never asked what my days were like. She never asked how it felt to come home exhausted but proud that I'd made my own money. She didn't ask about the friends I made there, the skills I learned, the quiet confidence that grew every time I realized I could rely on myself. Instead, she asked questions like, "When are you going to do something better?" Or "Say, don't you get tired of that kind of work?" Or my personal favorite, delivered with a tight smile at family gatherings, "She's just working at a factory for now." For now stretched into years. And with every passing holiday, I noticed something shift. The seating arrangements, the conversations, the way praise flowed freely toward my siblings and stopped just short of me. My brother's promotion was celebrated with a dinner out. My sister's engagement warranted a toast and photos posted everywhere. My achievements, pay raises, certifications, years without missing a day, were met with polite nods. "That's nice," my mother would say. "But don't you want more?" I did want more, just not her version of it. Mother's Day was always complicated in our house. My mom treated it less like a celebration and more like an annual performance review. Cards were compared. Gifts were evaluated. Gratitude was expected to be visible, enthusiastic, and preferably public. I usually kept it simple: flowers, a card, sometimes a small gift I could afford. I thought that was enough. I was wrong. The text arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, right as my shift ended. I was sitting in my car, hands still aching, phone buzzing on the passenger seat. Family group chat. Mom. Mother's Day dinner this Sunday. Successful kids only. At first I thought I misread it. I scrolled up. Read it again. Then again. Successful kids only. Below it, names started appearing. My brother replied with a thumbs up emoji. My sister sent a heart. Someone joked about the restaurant choice. My name didn't appear anywhere. Not in the invitation. Not in the replies. Not even in a follow-up clarification. It was as if I didn't exist. I stared at the screen longer than I want to admit, waiting for the familiar knot in my chest to loosen. It didn't. I checked the chat members. I was still there. Still included. Just not invited. It wasn't a mistake. That much was clear. I didn't respond. Not right away. Not ever. I went home, showered, ate something tasteless, and lay on my bed staring at the ceiling. I told myself it was just a dinner. That I shouldn't let it matter, that I was being sensitive. But the truth was simpler and crueler. My mother hadn't just excluded me from a meal. She had categorized me, labeled me, decided publicly that I didn't qualify as her child worth celebrating. And she'd done it casually, with emojis, That hurt more than yelling ever could have. Sunday came and went. I didn't ask where they were going. I didn't send flowers. I didn't call. I worked an extra shift instead. At some point that evening, my sister posted a photo. Everyone dressed nicely, smiling. My mother in the center, holding a glass of wine. The caption read, "So proud of my successful kids." I wasn't in the picture. I wasn't even behind the camera. I turned my phone face down and sat very still. Something inside me shifted then. Not dramatically, not loudly, quietly, like a door closing. The weeks after that were strange. No one mentioned the dinner. No one apologized. My mother acted as if nothing unusual had happened. She called to ask if I could help with something. Pick something up, fix something, cover something. I did, out of habit, out of old loyalty, out of the hope that maybe, somehow, this would correct itself. It didn't. If anything, the distance grew clearer. She started introducing me differently. "This is my daughter," she'd say, pausing, then adding, "She works locally," not mentioning where, not mentioning how long, not mentioning that I paid my own bills, had my own place, my own life, just enough information to be vague, just enough to be dismissive. One night, after another call where she asked for help but offered no warmth, I sat at my small kitchen table and asked myself a question I'd been avoiding for years. What if I stopped trying? Not in a dramatic way, not with announcements or ultimatums, just stopped. Stopped explaining, stopped proving, stopped showing up where I clearly wasn't wanted. The thought scared me. It also felt like relief. I didn't disappear all at once. At first, I just became less available. I missed a call, took longer to respond to texts, declined an invitation with a neutral excuse. No one noticed. Then I changed my schedule, took more shifts, saved more money, said less about my plans. Still, no one noticed. It was unsettling how easy it was to fade, how little space I actually occupied in their lives. Late one evening, after a long shift, I sat in my car again. Same parking lot, same buzzing phone. This time it wasn't a family text. It was an email confirmation. A job application I'd submitted weeks earlier, almost as a joke, had been accepted for the next stage. Different city. Better pay, full relocation assistance, a chance to start over somewhere I wasn't already defined. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. For the first time since that Mother's Day text, I smiled. Not because I felt victorious, but because I finally understood something. I didn't need to disappear to punish them. I needed to disappear to save myself. And they wouldn't realize what they'd lost until it was far too late. Disappearing doesn't happen all at once. That was the first thing I learned. It's not a slammed door or a dramatic goodbye. It's quieter than that. Slower. It starts with small absences that seem unimportant on their own, but together begin to form a pattern no one notices until it's complete. After that Mother's Day, I stopped initiating contact. I didn't announce it. I didn't make a decision out loud. I just didn't reach first. If my mother called, I answered. If she texted, I replied politely. Short, neutral, helpful when asked. I became the version of myself she seemed most comfortable with. Useful, distant, emotionally invisible. Weeks passed before anyone commented. When my sister finally did, it wasn't concern. It was irritation. "You've been kind of quiet lately," she said one evening over the phone. "Everything okay?" Her tone suggested inconvenience, not worry. "Just busy," I replied. She accepted that immediately. No follow-up questions, no curiosity. Busy was something she understood. Busy meant productive. Busy meant respectable. Busy meant I wasn't asking for anything. At work, my life expanded. I took extra shifts, learned new processes, got certified to operate machinery that came with a pay bump and more responsibility. My supervisor noticed enough to recommend me for a training program at another facility, a different city. When he mentioned it casually during a break, my heart jumped. "It's competitive," he said, "but you've got a solid chance if you want it." If I wanted it. No one had asked me that in a long time. At home, my apartment, not my parents' house. I started preparing without fully admitting it to myself. I cleaned out closets, sold things I didn't need, saved aggressively. I stopped buying decorations, stopped putting down roots. I told myself I was just being practical. Deep down, I knew better. Holidays came and went, each one reinforcing what I already knew. On my birthday, my mother sent a card late. No call, no message in the family chat. Just a card with neat handwriting and a gift card inside. "Hope you're doing well," she'd written. Nothing about missing me. Nothing about love. Just well wishes. Like I was a distant relative. Thanksgiving came next. I was technically invited, but it felt like an afterthought. A quick message. No details. No enthusiasm. I declined. "I'm working," I said. That wasn't a lie. No one pushed. At Christmas I went, for old time's sake, I told myself. For tradition. But traditions feel different when you no longer belong to them. The conversations flowed around me. Jokes referenced things I hadn't been part of. Plans were made without looking my way. When I excused myself early, my mother nodded distractedly. "Drive safe," she said. That was it. I sat in my car afterward, hands on the steering wheel, and waited for the familiar sting. It didn't come. What came instead was clarity. The training opportunity became real in early spring. I got the email while on lunch break, sitting on an overturned crate behind the building, the air thick with oil and heat. "We're pleased to inform you." I read it 3 times. Relocation assistance. Better pay. A chance to move into management within a year. I felt dizzy. This wasn't luck. This was years of showing up when no one was watching. I didn't tell my family right away, not because I wanted to hide it, but because I wanted to see how long it would take them to notice something had changed. The answer was they didn't. Weeks passed. I finalized paperwork, started planning my move, chose a tentative start date. My mother called once during that time. "Can you help your aunt move some furniture this weekend?" she asked. "No, how are you?" No small talk, just a request. "I can't," I said. "I've got plans." There was a pause on the line. "What kind of plans?" Important ones, I thought. But out loud I said work-related. That seemed to satisfy her. "Well," she said, "we'll figure something out." And just like that, the conversation ended. The strangest part wasn't that they didn't see me leaving. It was that they assumed I would always be there, available, reliable, on standby. They didn't ask about my future because they'd already decided it for me. And in their version, I didn't go anywhere. I told my siblings individually, eventually. My brother congratulated me quickly, then steered the conversation back to his own job stress. My sister reacted with mild surprise. "Oh, that's good for you," she said. "Isn't that far?" "Yes," I replied. There was another pause. "Well," she added, "just don't forget where you came from." I almost laughed. Telling my mother was last. I waited for the right moment, though I'm not sure why. Maybe part of me still hoped for a reaction that would prove I mattered more than I felt. I told her over coffee, sitting at the same kitchen table where I'd once washed dishes and listened to her call me embarrassing. "I got accepted into a program," I said. "I'll be moving in a couple of months." She blinked. "Moving?" "Yes, different city." She stirred her coffee slowly. Thought about it. "Well," she said finally, "I suppose that's something." Something, no pride, no excitement, no questions about where or how or when. Just a neutral acknowledgement, like I'd mentioned changing my hairstyle. "And your job?" she asked. "It's part of the job," I said. She nodded, satisfied. I realized then that if I'd announced I was quitting work altogether, she might have reacted more strongly. Progress only mattered when it looked impressive to other people. The closer my moving date came, the lighter I felt. I told fewer people. I packed quietly. I let my lease end without renewal. I stopped posting online. Stopped sharing updates. It felt like erasing myself from a story I no longer wanted to be part of. On my last week in town, my family organized a dinner. Not for me, for my sister, who'd achieved another milestone. I was invited, again as an afterthought. I didn't go. That night, sitting among half-packed boxes, I realized something important. They didn't exclude me because I worked in a factory. They excluded me because I didn't make them feel superior. And the moment I stopped trying to earn my place, the imbalance became unbearable for them. The day I left, I didn't tell anyone I was on the road. I loaded my car before dawn, drove away as the sky lightened behind me. No tears, no speeches, just distance. Miles of it, and with every mile, I felt less like the embarrassing daughter they'd quietly pushed aside, and more like someone finally choosing herself. Starting over is lonely in ways no one warns you about. The new city didn't greet me with familiarity or comfort. It didn't care who my mother was, what my siblings did, or how I'd been treated back home. It just existed, busy, loud, indifferent. And somehow that indifference felt like freedom. My first apartment was small, clean but bare, the kind of place where every sound echoed a little too much at night. I slept on a mattress on the floor for the first week, surrounded by boxes labeled in thick marker. Work, kitchen, important. There was something comforting about that word. Important. It meant I'd decided what mattered now. No one else. The new facility was bigger than any place I'd worked before, more organized, more demanding. From the first day, expectations were clear. Show up on time, know your role, do the work well. No one asked about my background beyond what was relevant. No one tried to place me socially. No one cared if my job title impressed anyone else. I was evaluated on results. Within weeks, I realized how starved I'd been for that kind of environment. When I spoke in meetings, people listened. When I made suggestions, they were considered. When I worked hard, it showed, not through praise-filled speeches, but through trust, more responsibility, better shifts. A supervisor who checked in, not to criticize, but to ask if I needed anything to succeed. It felt unreal, like I'd stepped into a version of adulthood that had been delayed for years. At night, the loneliness crept in. There were moments when I wanted to call my mother just to hear a familiar voice. Moments when I wondered if disappearing had been a mistake. If maybe I'd been too sensitive, too proud. Those thoughts usually came late, when exhaustion softened my defenses. But then I remembered the group chat, the emojis, the empty space where my name should have been, and the doubt faded. My family noticed my absence slowly. First, it was logistical. "Do you know where she is now?" My aunt asked my mother during a call I later heard about. "She moved for work," my mother replied vaguely. "Some factory thing?" The phrase stung when I heard it secondhand, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything. Even now, she couldn't bring herself to say it properly. Months passed. I changed my number and kept the old one active only for emergencies. I didn't block anyone, I just stopped making myself easy to reach. My social media stayed quiet. No updates, no photos, no hints of my new life. That was intentional. For once, I wanted something that belonged only to me. Then something unexpected happened. I was promoted, not dramatically. Not publicly, just a meeting, a new title, a pay increase, and a schedule that put me in charge of people who'd been there longer than I had. "You earned it," my manager said simply. I went home that night and sat on the floor, back against the couch, and laughed until I cried. Not because of the money, but because someone saw me. That promotion changed things. My confidence shifted. My posture changed. The way I spoke, at work and eventually everywhere, grew firmer, calmer. I no longer over-explained myself. I no longer apologized for existing, and slowly, the need for my family's approval loosened its grip. They found out eventually. My brother stumbled across an internal company post someone shared publicly. My last name caught his attention. He called me that night. "Hey," he said, casual but curious. "Didn't know you moved up like that." I waited. "Yeah," I replied. "It's been good." There was a pause. "So, what exactly do you do now?" I explained. Briefly, clearly. Another pause. "That's actually kind of impressive," he admitted. "Kind of." I smiled to myself. "Yeah," I said. "It is." Word traveled fast after that. Suddenly messages appeared. Likes on old posts. A cousin reached out asking how I was doing. My sister commented on a photo I uploaded months earlier, as if time hadn't passed. My mother texted next. "Heard you're doing well. No congratulations. No apology. Just acknowledgement." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "I am." That was all. The invitation came a few weeks later. A family gathering. Nothing special, supposedly. Just dinner. Everyone included. This time my name was in the message. Explicitly. I didn't respond right away. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt curious. Not about whether they'd changed, but about whether I had. I went back home for the first time nearly a year after leaving. The house looked the same. The neighborhood felt smaller. Familiar in a way that no longer fit me. When I walked in, conversations paused. My mother looked me over. Not unkindly, but carefully. As if assessing something new. "You look well," she said. "I am," I replied. And I meant it. Dinner was polite. Too polite. Questions were asked about my job, my city, my plans. For the first time, they listened. Really listened. But something was missing. The ease, the authority my mother once held over me, the quiet expectation that I would accommodate, adjust, comply. I answered honestly but selectively. I shared what I chose, nothing more. At one point, my mother pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I didn't realize you were doing so well," she said, not meeting my eyes. I waited. "Well," she continued, "you know, I always wanted the best for you." There it was, the sentence I'd heard my whole life. I nodded. "I know," I said. It was true. She had wanted the best. She just hadn't recognized it when it didn't look the way she imagined. Later that night, lying in my childhood bedroom, I realized something important. I didn't feel small here anymore. I didn't feel embarrassed. I didn't feel like I needed to prove anything. I felt finished trying to rewrite the past, finished hoping for a different version of her, finished carrying shame that was never mine to begin with. Before I left the next morning, my mother hugged me. It was brief, awkward. "Don't be a stranger," she said. I smiled. "I won't," I replied. But we both knew that things wouldn't go back to how they were. They didn't need to. Driving away, I didn't feel like I was disappearing anymore. I felt visible. Just not to the people who once defined my worth. And that was okay, because the life I was building now, they hadn't earned front row seats to it. People think closure comes with an apology, a tearful conversation, a confession, a moment where someone finally admits they were wrong. That's what I used to think too. But standing at a gas station halfway back to my new city, coffee cooling in the cup holder, I realized something important. Closure doesn't always arrive with words. Sometimes it arrives with silence. After that visit, my family tried harder. Not in a loud way, not dramatically, just enough to be noticeable. My mother started texting more often. Little updates, questions she'd never asked before. Articles about career growth, photos of things that reminded her of me. It would have meant everything to me once. Now it felt late. Not fake, not cruel, just out of sync with who I had become. I replied politely, kindly, briefly. The distance remained. Back in my new life, things accelerated. Another evaluation, another meeting, another step forward. I was trusted with bigger decisions, bigger teams, bigger consequences. People came to me for answers, not because I was loud or impressive, but because I was steady, reliable, capable, the same qualities my mother had once dismissed as factory traits. One afternoon, my supervisor pulled me aside. "We're expanding," he said, "and we need someone who understands the floor and leadership. Someone who didn't just read about the work." He paused. "I think that someone is you." The offer came with a new title. A real one my mother would recognize instantly. I accepted. I didn't call home. I went out alone that night and celebrated quietly the way I always had. The irony didn't escape me. The more successful I became, the less I felt the need to announce it. Success, I learned, wasn't about being seen. It was about being secure. The next Mother's Day arrived faster than I expected. This time, the family group chat lit up early. "Mom, Mother's Day dinner this Sunday. Everyone please come. It won't be the same without all my kids." The word lingered on the screen. My name was included. No qualifiers, no conditions, no emojis attached to success. Just all. I didn't answer right away. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel tempted. I felt reflective. A year ago, that invitation would have broken me. I would have read into every word, searched for hidden meanings, wondered if I finally qualified. Now, I already knew where I stood. I called my mother instead. She sounded surprised, then pleased. "I saw the message," I said calmly. "Oh," she replied quickly. "I hoped you would." There was a pause. "I won't be coming," I added. Another pause. Longer this time. "Oh," she said again, softer. "I have plans." I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. I didn't justify myself. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to. "I understand," she said eventually. And for the first time, I believed her. That Sunday, I spent the day the way I wanted. I slept in, took a walk, called someone who mattered, cooked a meal I enjoyed. No guilt, no bitterness, no sense of loss, just peace. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. A photo appeared in the group chat. My mother at the table, my siblings around her, smiling, familiar. The caption read, "Thinking of you." No pressure, no shame, no exclusion. I smiled. Not sadly, gratefully. Something had changed. Not in her. In me. I no longer needed her approval to feel complete. I no longer measured my worth through her pride. I had outgrown the version of love that required me to be smaller. Weeks later, my sister called. "You're different," she said. "Am I?" I asked. "Yeah," she admitted. "You don't try anymore." I smiled to myself. "No," I said gently. "I just don't perform anymore." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. I still see my family, on my terms. I visit when it feels right. I leave when it doesn't. I share what I choose. There are no speeches, no confrontations, no dramatic reckonings, just boundaries, strong, quiet boundaries. Sometimes I think back to that group chat message. Mother's Day dinner, successful kids only. At the time, it felt like rejection. Now I see it differently. It was an ending. And endings, I've learned, are often disguised as heartbreak. My mother never called me embarrassing again. She didn't need to. Because the version of me she once dismissed no longer existed. Not because I became someone else, but because I finally became myself. And the truth is, I didn't disappear to make them regret it. I disappeared because staying meant slowly erasing who I was. Leaving saved me.